So what I want to do now is I want to try to put some language around what it means to see our world through the lens of resurrection. Instead of just being people who believe in resurrection, to be people who see our whole world through that lens. Here's a couple of thoughts on that. That resurrection demonstrates that death has no power. What appears to be the end is only a new beginning. That Jesus came to establish the kingdom of God and primarily defeat death. How do you defeat death? You become a human, you die, you enter into Hades, you take the keys to death and hell, and you use it against it. This is the message of the gospel, that death has no sting. Another writer said it this way: "Oh death, where's your victory? Oh Hades, where is your sting?" This is what the gospel and resurrection was all about. It's not about an escape from suffering. That Christianity is not an exercise by which we have enough faith to get out of things. Rather, Christianity is an exercise by which we profoundly trust the presence of the one who enters into the thing with us and removes a bit of the sting of it. That number two, resurrection challenges the way we think. If we were wrong about death, what else could we be wrong about? Like, honestly, if death isn't even the sure thing into the story that we thought it was, if that's not even true, then maybe we should open more conversations about God instead of shutting them down. Resurrection demonstrates how far we still have to go in order to journey with God. The resurrection demonstrates that whoever the rightest person about God is walking the earth right now, they still haven't scratched 1/1000th of 1% of the infinite possibilities that God has for our life. Resurrection demonstrates that we can't be held to the shackles of certainty. That actually the enemy of faith is not doubt. The enemy of faith is sight, only going by what you can see in front of you, because resurrection says you can't trust everything you see because you never know where that is simply not the end of the story. Let's say it another way. Next slide. That resurrection demonstrates the availability of new life here and now. Resurrection shows us that Christianity is not all about waiting to go to heaven when we die, although we embrace that. That resurrection demonstrates that there's new life available here, now, today. Why would we wait to go to heaven when we die, when heaven can be established in our heart right now? That was the message of Jesus, was don't wait to get to heaven when you die. Allow heaven to be so fundamentally established in your heart right now that when you do walk into heaven one day, you don't get whiplash. That you just walk in and it's like, yeah, this is how we've been living for a long, long time. Resurrection demonstrates that there's a new creation bursting forth in the middle of this one. It's a glimpse as to what is going to happen later. It should make us rethink the way we think about miracles. Sometimes we talk about miracles as the aberration of the normal, but resurrection gives us the glimpse that maybe the miracle is the normal and the non-miracle is the aberration. Maybe this is what Jesus was going for, to come in and defeat death and invoke and inspire a world believing in infinite possibilities of an open universe instead of the closed possibilities of only going with what we see. This is a worldview of resurrection. Now, there's this guy named Paul, and Paul's amazing. Let me say a couple things about Paul that should be obvious, right? But maybe they're not. Paul died having never known if what he gave his life to worked. Paul died before the Gospels were written. Paul died before Christianity became legal. Paul was killed in a horrendous way under the authority of a Caesar named Nero, and he never knew if what he gave his life to ever took off. He never knew before death if it would ever get any traction. He didn't know. And you would think, being tortured every day, knowing you're going to die horrendously, that you'd be wondering, I wonder if I've wasted my life. And he gives this incredible treatise on the meaning of resurrection for our world in a chapter called 1 Corinthians 15. Now, 1 Corinthians 15 is 58 verses long. 58 verses in Bible terms is a saga. It's the Shawshank Redemption of Bible scriptures, right? That is a long, long Bible passage. And if you read it all, some of it, quite frankly, is confusing. It would take us a long time to unpack it. So he says stuff like this: so you see, the mortal must take on the immortal to inherit the imperishable. Which leads to this question. What? He says, so you see, because of Jesus' resurrection, there's no longer a need to baptize dead people. Which leads to all kinds of questions like, was that ever a problem, right? And so there's 57 verses of deep, meaningful things around what does it mean to see our world through resurrection. Evidently something about mortal taking on immortal, inheriting imperishable, no more need to baptize dead people. There's all kinds of deep stuff in there. But like all great rabbis, he summarizes the whole thing, in case you missed it, in one statement at the end. So I figured, let's just go with that one. This is 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. In other words, Paul said, if you're seeing your world through resurrection, you can know that if you did it for God, you can never waste your life. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, you still can't waste your life, because in resurrection, nothing is wasted that you did for God. Nothing is wasted. If you started that business and it worked, awesome. If you started that business and it didn't work, I'm very sorry, but you still didn't waste your life. Not if you did it for God, no way. Not if you did it for God, not because of resurrection. You still can't waste your life. You still can't do it. If you parented those children for God, right? I hope they all turn out great. But if one of them turns out a little bit of a lunatic, you didn't waste your life. Not if you parented for God. If you parented out of duty, that's a whole nother thing. But if you parented because you saw your life as a living sacrifice and you did it for God, then whether it works, whether it doesn't work, you cannot waste your life, for nothing is wasted. You gave 10 years to that relationship, 10 years to that thing, and then they walked away from you, and you think, man, I just wasted 10 years of my life. No, you didn't. Not if you believe in resurrection, not if you see your world through resurrection. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but nothing is wasted. What if we took a second and actually believed that you cannot waste your life, that resurrection is not a boring doctrinal point that belongs on a pamphlet. Resurrection is something that should cover the way we see our whole world. Namely, if I'm doing what I'm doing for God, then I cannot waste my life. I travel this world doing this almost every single day, and I hope you enjoy it. I do. But if you don't, it doesn't mean I wasted my time. Not if I did it for God. Paul is inspiring us to believe something, that if we did it for God, we can never ever waste our life. That seeing the world through resurrection means you have to believe you cannot waste your life. If you did it for God, nothing is wasted. Let's say it this way. Next